for those who came late, again, I'm Brad Friedman from bradblog.com. I cover a lot of this stuff, too much of this stuff every day. I got to tell you, there's a lot of election integrity work going on around the country. But what these guys, John, Jim March, Randall, Paul, what you guys are doing here in this town for election integrity, I hope you know, you are light years ahead of what is going on in the rest of the country for election integrity. You guys are coming up with stuff that election integrity advocates everywhere else haven't even thought of yet. And I want to let Bill Risner talk about that a little bit, because when I came here, I have a family member who I learned was in Tucson, and I called her. Is she, Ruthie, are you still here? There you go, hi, Ruthie. And I called her and I said, oh, I'm going to be down here in Tucson with this film on county. She said, oh, what's that about? I said, oh, it's about electronic voting. She said, oh, well, we don't have electronic voting here in Tucson. Well, I just went to vote the other day and I filled out the paper and I put it in and everything's fine. Maybe not so much. For that, let's go to Bill Risner, who is leading currently the legal battle, the Democratic County, right? Tucson, Pima County Democratic Party, taking on the Diebold machine, quite literally, in the name of Brad Nelson. Is he the one that's still and talk a little bit about the fight that you've had to make here in Pima County.
You know, the lawsuit we've had in Pima County is interesting in a whole bunch of ways. One way that it's interesting is to see what has been covered in the press. It's phenomenal, almost no matter what fact we turned up, what horrible thing that we discover, what the testimony is, the press basically wouldn't cover it. The Citizen did a little bit, the Star very little. In the trial, I don't think I talked to the Star reporter once. Perhaps I did and recognized who that person was. They would talk, get the county's version, or they simply wouldn't report because there's a tremendous feeling that, well, we don't want people to lose confidence in the election. And if we report what's going on, they'll lose confidence. So let's look at what the situation is in Pima County today. My case, the Pima County Democratic Party was the plaintiff. It really started in a way as litigation with the entire county party structure, the elected precinct committee people, at the organizing convention. They make up the party. These are the elected precinct committee people. They voted unanimous and asked the Democratic majority on the Board of Supervisors by name. They said Sharon Bronson, Valadez, Roland Valadez, Richard Elias, we want you to cooperate with the Democratic Party. Give us the database so we can perform our job as a party and not have to sue you. Later, the executive committee sends the same message. I took the deposition of Chuck Huckleberry, and the way it works in Pima County is he, as the county administrator, he's the king of Pima County, he runs things. And he picked Brad Nelson, and Brad Nelson reports directly to him. There's no one in between. So I asked under oath, I asked Chuck Huckleberry, what role did the Board of Supervisors, now this is the group that by statute has the responsibilities for running an election, what role did the Board of Supervisors have in denying this database to the Democratic Party? He said none, no role. Well, how did you make your decision? Well, he says, I don't really understand computers, but I rely on a guy named John Moffat that reports directly to me, and I pay $184,000 a year at a part-time job, and he tells me that there's problems, and so you can't have this database. And at trial, then, this is a year-long thing. You know, it's amazing the struggles that we go through at trial, and then John Moffitt gets on the stand. So here's the guy who Huckleberry says he relies on. That's the story. So then ask him, what's the problem with the Democratic Party having the database? Well, he says the number one thing is if you have the database, then you could, if we gave you that after the election, you could print reports as if the results were different. Even though other political parties would have copies, even though we've got the ballots and they've got the original things, you could sow chaos. You could disrupt the election process if we would let the political parties find out what's going on. So when they strip all of that down, it's nothing but bullshit. It's nothing but smoke. There's nothing there. But what is there is an election director, Brad Nelson, who again under oath says he doesn't know anything about the computers, and he says at one point he had a rudimentary knowledge of how the computer system works. This is an election that runs on computer. He had a rudimentary knowledge at one time because somebody from Diebold stopped by and spent a couple hours with him on the afternoon, but he really doesn't know how it works because he relies on one guy. And we had testimony from that one guy's assistant and another woman who helped run the office that the one guy regularly would take home with him a copy of the database during elections where, if he wanted, easily he could change anything he wants and put back in the computer. The testimony was absolutely clear. There's no question about this, that no one has ever checked on what's in that computer or how it works. It's not the Secretary of State's job. She's not done it here or anywhere. The Board of Supervisors has never done it. The Republicans have never. No one, the Democratic Party this time, we're the only ones who's ever looked and followed up on that. So you got a system with one guy whose supervisors don't know anything, the guys up above him don't know anything, nobody checks, nobody audits. And we may be better than some other counties in Arizona. It's an unbelievable situation. We had testimony from, at the trial, they put a nice woman from Gila County, little Dixie Mundy, nice white hair, and the county put her on, and she says, yes. She says, they asked her, do you think there are any security problems? She says, why no? The Secretary of State would have told us that there are security problems. So there's no security problem. And well, how do you get your ballot information for elections? Well, in her county, and there's 12 counties in Arizona that use Diebold equipment, 11 of them, all that computer information is, there's a private company somewhere in Glendale that nice Bill Broyles has, and he has unknown employees at his company that lay out the ballots and send by email electronically to 11 of these counties the information, and no one checks what's in those codes at all. And then, I'm probably running out of time, but John's gone up to Maricopa County. It's worse there with the system, with the big gorilla in Arizona.
Bill, let me ask you, just to sort of cut to the chase, in case there happens to be some mainstream media people here. Did you have corporate mainstream media? You're right. I'm the mainstream media. Anyway. Yeah, we all are. The Democratic Party of Pima County had to go to court to file a lawsuit to find out how voters voted in their last election. Is that just about right, to find the data on how it is that they actually voted?
Well, What we want to do is we want to get the database to be able to examine and confirm and see what went on. Because it's really an auditing function.
Right.
No one has ever checked. We want to check. We want to look. Because, you know, if those of us who are, have gray hair and stuff,
Yeah.
remember the time when, you know, you count in public, you see what's going on, you know what the count is.
Well, you're Jan.
You look through a glass and you see a machine, they say, it's counting, because see that red light's blinking.
Well, that's crazy that you want to check this sort of thing. I think Jan Brewer is right. You, sir, are an anarchist.